I never imagined the people who were supposed to protect me would be the same people who would break me. For years, I believed family meant standing together when life became difficult. I believed that no matter how bad things got, my parents and my siblings would always be there for me. But I was wrong. The day I lost everything was the day I discovered who truly cared about me and who only cared about what I could provide. My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how my own family pushed me away when I had nothing left, only to come back years later when I had built a life they never expected. Growing up, I was always the quiet one in my family. My older brother, Michael, was the one everyone admired. He was confident, successful, and always knew how to impress people. My parents talked about him like he was the future of the family. Every achievement he made became a celebration. Every mistake I made became a disappointment. I wasn't angry about it at first. I told myself that every family had favorites. I thought maybe one day they would see my efforts too. So I worked harder. While my brother chased attention, I spent nights learning new skills, saving money, and trying to build something of my own. I didn't have connections. I didn't have people opening doors for me. I only had determination. After years of struggling, I finally created a small business from nothing. It wasn't huge in the beginning, but it was mine. Every dollar I earned came from my own hard work. For the first time in my life, I felt proud of myself. I thought my family would finally look at me differently. But instead of being happy, they started asking questions. How much money are you making now? How much is your company worth? Can you help your brother with his plans? At first, I didn't notice what was happening. I thought they were just family members being curious. But slowly, I realized something painful. They weren't interested in my journey. They were interested in what they could get from me. And the moment I stopped saying yes to everything, their attitude changed completely. One evening, my parents invited me to dinner. I thought it was going to be a normal family gathering. But when I arrived, I noticed something strange. My brother was already there. My parents were sitting quietly. Nobody was smiling. Then my father placed some documents on the table. He looked at me and said, "We need you to make a decision tonight." I picked up the papers and started reading. And within seconds, I felt my heart sink. They wanted me to give up control of the company I had spent years building. They wanted my brother to become the main decision maker. I looked at my family and asked, "Are you seriously asking me to give away everything I worked for?" My brother leaned back in his chair and smiled. He said, "Don't make this emotional. We're family. Everything belongs to the family." That sentence changed everything, because I finally understood. They didn't see my hard work as mine. They saw it as something they were entitled to take. I looked at my father and waited for him to say something. I expected him to defend me. I expected him to tell my brother that what I built belonged to me. But my father simply looked away. That silence hurt more than any words could have. My mother finally spoke. "Your brother has always been better with people. He knows how to grow a business. You are too emotional about this." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The same people who watched me struggle for years were now telling me that my own creation would be safer in someone else's hands. I slowly placed the documents back on the table. Then I asked one question. If you believe Michael can do it better, why don't you build something with him? Why do you need what I created? Nobody answered, because deep down, they knew the truth. They didn't want to build something. They wanted to take something. My brother became angry. He leaned forward and said, "Don't act like you're better than us. You were lucky. Without this family, you would have nothing." Those words stayed with me. Lucky? Was it luck that kept me awake for years? Was it luck that made me work when everyone else was enjoying life? Was it luck that made me sacrifice everything to create a future? I stood up from that table. I looked at every person sitting there. My parents, my brother, the people I thought would always support me. And I said, I would rather lose my family than lose myself. Nobody stopped me when I walked out. Nobody called. Nobody apologized. For the first time in my life, I was completely alone. But something unexpected happened after that. The pain that I felt didn't destroy me. It motivated me. I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who refused to see it. Instead, I focused on building the life I always dreamed about. I worked harder than ever before. I surrounded myself with people who respected my ideas. Slowly, the business started growing. One customer became 10, 10 became hundreds, and the small company that my family thought I couldn't handle became something much bigger than anyone imagined. 3 years passed, I moved into a beautiful home. I expanded my business. I created jobs for people who believed in my vision. But the biggest change wasn't financial. The biggest change was inside me. I no longer needed my family's approval. I had finally learned that sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who never understood your potential. Then one morning, everything changed. I received a phone call from an unknown number. Normally, I would ignore it. But something made me answer. A familiar voice spoke on the other end. It was my mother. Her voice was shaking. "Daniel, we need your help." I stayed silent. After years of ignoring me, after forcing me away, after treating my hard work like it belonged to them. Now they needed me. I asked, "What happened?" There was a long pause. Then my mother whispered, "Your brother made a mistake." I looked out of my office window at the city below me. The same city where I once struggled, the same city where I built everything they said I couldn't. And for the first time, I realized something. The people who thought they were throwing me away had actually given me the freedom to become someone they could never control. But I still didn't know the full truth about what had happened inside my family. Because what my brother did next would reveal a secret that changed everything. I held the phone in my hand, but I didn't answer immediately. For years, I had waited for my family to understand what they had done. I waited for an apology. I waited for them to admit that they were wrong. But when that moment finally came, I wasn't sure how I felt. A part of me wanted to say, "You left me when I needed you. Now you are asking me for help." But another part of me remembered the person I wanted to become. Someone who didn't let anger control his decisions. So I asked my mother, "What happened to Michael?" She took a deep breath. "After you left, he convinced your father to let him manage the business." I already knew where this was going. My mother continued, "At first, everything looked fine. He made big promises. He talked about expanding quickly. He told everyone he could do things you never could." I closed my eyes, because I knew my brother. He always loved the appearance of success. But he never understood the sacrifice behind it. "What happened next?" I asked. My mother's voice became quieter. "He made several bad decisions. He borrowed money. He signed contracts without understanding them. And now the company is facing serious problems." I looked around my office. The walls were covered with awards, achievements, and memories of everything I had built. A few years earlier, my family thought I was the weak one. Now they were calling me because the person they chose over me had destroyed what I created. Then my mother said something I never expected. "Daniel, your father wants to talk to you." I almost laughed. My father, the man who sat silently while they tried to take everything from me. The man who watched me walk away without saying a word. I asked, "Why does he want to talk now?" My mother paused. Then she said, "Because he finally understands what he lost." The next day, I met my father at a small restaurant. When he walked in, he looked different. The confidence he always carried was gone. He looked older, tired, broken. He sat across from me and remained silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "I made a mistake." Those were words I never thought I would hear. My father had always believed admitting mistakes was a weakness. But that day, he looked like a man who finally understood the consequences of his choices. "I thought Michael was the future of this family," he said. "I thought you were too cautious, too quiet. I thought you didn't have what it took." I listened without saying anything. Then he looked directly at me. But I was wrong. Those two words carried years of pain. I wanted to accept them. I wanted to forgive him. But forgiveness doesn't erase memories. I asked him, "Do you know what hurt the most?" He looked down. It wasn't losing the company. It wasn't losing money. It was realizing that my own family didn't believe in me. My father had tears in his eyes. For the first time, I saw regret on his face. But before I could respond, he reached into his bag and placed a folder on the table. He pushed it toward me. "What is this?" I asked. He said, "Something Michael hid from all of us." I opened the folder, and within seconds, my entire perspective changed. Inside were documents showing that my brother hadn't just made mistakes. He had intentionally hidden information. He had blamed me for problems he created himself. And the biggest shock was still waiting. Because one document had a signature that made my hands freeze. It was my mother's signature. I looked at my father in disbelief. "What is this?" He took a deep breath, and he said, "Your mother knew." I couldn't move. The person who called me her son, the person who told me family comes first, had known the truth all along, but she chose to protect my brother. At that moment, I realized something. The betrayal wasn't just about money, it was about trust, and now I had a decision to make. I could either walk away and let them face the consequences, or I could do something they never expected. I could save them, but this time, the choice would be mine. I looked at the document again and again, hoping I had misunderstood something. But I hadn't. The truth was right in front of me. My mother knew about everything. She knew Michael was making bad decisions. She knew he was hiding important information. And most importantly, she knew I was being blamed for problems I had nothing to do with. I looked at my father and asked, "When did you find out?" He looked away. "Only a few weeks ago." I felt a deep disappointment. Only a few weeks ago. "So all this time, you believed I was the problem?" My father didn't answer, because he knew there was no excuse. For years, I had tried to prove myself to them. For years, I wanted them to be proud of me. But they were so focused on the son they admired that they ignored the son who was standing right in front of them. Then my father said something unexpected. "I want you to help us." I smiled sadly. "Help you?" He nodded. "The company is falling apart. Employees are leaving. Customers are losing trust. We need someone who understands how to fix it." I leaned back in my chair. A few years ago, I would have done anything to hear those words. I would have rushed in. I would have tried to save everything. But I was not the same person anymore. I asked him, "If I had failed instead of Michael, would you have come looking for me?" My father became silent. That silence was his answer. I left the restaurant without making any promises. For the next few days, I thought about everything. I thought about the pain, the betrayal, the years I spent feeling unwanted. But I also thought about something else. I thought about the people who worked at that company. The employees who had nothing to do with my family's mistakes. They had families, they had dreams, they were depending on their jobs. And I realized something important. Helping them wasn't about helping my family. It was about doing what was right. So I agreed to one condition. I would help rebuild the company. But I would not give up control of my own life again. My father agreed. When I walked into the company building for the first time in years, everyone looked shocked. Some employees remembered me. They remembered the person who built the foundation of the business. They welcomed me with respect. But my brother was not happy. When he saw me, his expression changed. He pulled me into a private room. "What are you doing here?" I looked at him calmly. "Saving the company you almost destroyed." His face became angry. "You think you're better than me?" I shook my head. "No, I think I learned from my mistakes." "You never learned from yours." He walked closer and said, "You always wanted attention. You always wanted to prove you were the better son." I looked at him and said, "That's the difference between us, Michael. I wanted to build something. You only wanted people to think you built something." Those words made him quiet, because deep down, he knew they were true. Over the next few weeks, I started analyzing everything. The contracts, the finances, the decisions that had been made. And slowly, I discovered even more secrets. My brother had spent years trying to look successful. But behind the scenes, he was creating problems. He had ignored advice from experienced employees. He had removed people who questioned him. He had chosen pride over responsibility. But the biggest surprise came when I discovered one final document. A document that revealed the real reason my family pushed me away. And when I read it, I finally understood everything. I stared at the document in my hands, trying to understand what I was seeing. It was a private agreement between my brother and a group of investors. The date was from months before my family asked me to give up control of my company. And the details shocked me. Michael had planned everything. He wasn't just making mistakes. He was preparing to replace me from the beginning. He told everyone that I was holding the company back. He convinced my parents that I was too careful and that he was the person who could take the business to the next level. But the truth was completely different. He wanted control because he wanted the success without the sacrifice. He wanted the respect without the years of hard work. I closed the folder and sat there quietly. For years, I wondered why my own family chose him over me. Now I finally knew, it was never because he was better. It was because he was louder. He knew how to make promises. I knew how to keep them. The next day, I called a meeting with everyone involved. My father, my mother, my brother, and the company leaders. Everyone sat around the table waiting for me to speak. Michael looked confident. He probably thought I was there to attack him. But I wasn't. I didn't come there for revenge. I came there for the truth. I placed the documents on the table. My brother's face changed instantly. "What is this?" he asked. I looked at him. "You know exactly what this is." My mother picked up the papers and started reading. Within seconds, her expression changed. She looked at Michael. "Is this true?" He didn't answer, and that silence told everyone everything. My father looked disappointed, not because the company was in trouble, but because he finally realized who had been honest with him all along. Michael suddenly stood up. "You all want to blame me now." Nobody spoke. He continued. "Everyone expected me to be successful. Everyone expected me to prove myself." I looked at him and said, "Nobody forced you to lie." Those words stopped him, because that was the real issue. Making mistakes is human, but hiding the truth and blaming others is a choice. The room became silent. Then my brother said something I never expected. "You always had everything easier." I almost couldn't believe it. "Easier?" I asked. "Michael, you had everyone's support. You had everyone's trust. You had every opportunity handed to you." I looked around the room. "But I had something you never had." He looked at me. I said, "I had to earn everything." Nobody spoke after that, because everyone knew it was true. Over the next few months, I worked to rebuild the company. It wasn't easy. There were many problems. Many people had lost confidence. Many customers had moved away. But slowly, we fixed everything. We rebuilt trust. We protected employees. And most importantly, we created a company based on honesty, not appearances. During that time, my relationship with my father slowly changed. He apologized many times, but I learned something important. An apology is the beginning of change, not the end. Trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. I forgave him, but I also created boundaries. Because forgiveness doesn't mean allowing people to hurt you again. My mother also apologized. She admitted that she had always compared us. She said she was so focused on having a successful son that she failed to appreciate the son who was actually working hard. For the first time, I heard the words I had waited for my entire life. "We are proud of you." But this time, I didn't need those words anymore, because I had already become proud of myself. And then, 1 year later, something happened that proved the biggest lesson of my life. 1 year later, I stood in the same office where everything had once fallen apart. But this time, everything was different. The company was stronger than ever. The employees trusted us again. Customers returned, and I finally understood something important. The biggest victory in life is not proving others wrong. The biggest victory is becoming someone you are proud of. My brother eventually left the company. He needed time to understand that success is not about being the person everyone notices. It's about being the person who keeps working when nobody is watching. My family changed too, not overnight, not magically, but slowly. They learned that love is not about choosing the most successful person. It's about respecting every person's journey. Looking back, I used to think my family leaving me was the worst thing that ever happened. But now I see it differently. Their rejection gave me the freedom to build my own life. Their doubt gave me the motivation to work harder. And their betrayal taught me the most valuable lesson. Never let someone else decide your worth. Sometimes the people who walk away from you are making room for the people and opportunities that truly belong in your life. I lost my family's approval, but I found my own confidence, and that was worth more than anything I could have gained.